Hi everyone, good to be back after finally fixing up my computer. It seems while I was gone, a lot of things happened, but also a lot of nothing has changed. I suppose now is as good a time as any to continue the series as stuff keeps happening. So, welcome back to Stuff Keeps Happening episode 2 or 3. I feel like the last one was more like a 1.5 because I didn't really call it a Stuff Keeps Happening, but it was basically a Stuff Keeps Happening. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, what I'm getting at is we're living in very tumultuous times. Things are changing every day. It's difficult to keep up with everything going on. At the same time, every day is the same and nothing is changing. We are experiencing events that have toppled empires of the past and just kind of existing anyway. Moving along like that meme of that dog in the burning house. This is fine, he says. This is fine, we say, but we know we're not fine. So let's just jump straight into it. Get it? Straight? You know, like the Strait of Hormuz? No? You don't get it? Well, that's because you're gay. The Strait of Hormuz has been in a constant state of simultaneously open and closed at the same time. Schrodinger's Strait, if you will. This is made possible by both the United States naval blockade and Iran's completely decimated, destroyed, inoperable, non-existent navy also doing a blockade and laying mines and conducting naval operations. Not to mention the missile batteries lining the shores and islands surrounding the strait, all 100% under Iranian control. But they probably wouldn't use any of that, right? They wouldn't shoot missiles at boats that ignore their warnings to not cross. That's crazy. So anyway, we've announced Project Fuck Around and Find Out, also known as Project Freedom, where the United States asks ships trapped in the Persian Gulf to fuck around, and we proceed to find out if Iran does what it says it's going to do. So anyway, they shot missiles at our boats, and drones at other boats, and rockets, and a bunch of other shit. And essentially, the ceasefire turned out as all Middle Eastern ceasefires do. It holds a name and a name alone, where multiple small clashes were reported between the US and Iran, Iran and the UAE, and everyone else around, basically. Although what's true and what they say is true is difficult to surmise, as some sources state that the United States fired upon small civilian cargo vessels instead of the IRGC fast boats. But it's fine, they were probably terrorists anyway, right? They probably had nukes on those boats. Anyway, enough about the war aspect of the strait. Let's talk about the ramifications of all this that we have yet to feel. You thought those gas prices were it? We aren't even feeling the start of things right now. Not only is the price per barrel fluctuating more than my blood alcohol level these days, but what really gets me is watching the price per barrel change as soon as Trump says anything. Like, economics is so fake and gay. The strait is open, he says. Price per barrel goes down. Iran says, LOL, you thought. Price per barrel goes up. Is a little consistency too much to ask for? But what do I, a frivolous little goy, know about the complex world of oil economics? How dare I try to comprehend the elite class gambling machine we call oil futures and crude? Anyway, what I'm getting at is shit's gonna get worse before it gets worse. Not only on the oil side of things, but according to some reports, up to 70% of farmers were unable to afford fertilizer for this year's planting cycle. As in a cycle that has already passed. As in a few months, we're going to see the consequences of that. Food prices are going to go up, not just because of the scarcity, but also because of the rising gas prices. Combined with the lack of oil shipments going out, we could straight up see empty shelves just like during COVID times. All because, Iran is enriching uranium. Like it's our fucking business. The country with over 5,000 nukes is telling another country on the other side of the world that they can't even have the component to make one. Which they aren't even trying to do anyway. The Ayatollahs strictly prohibit the creation of nuclear weapons, and it's not just like they say they don't do that. No, they issue what's called a fatwa, a religious decree. Nukes are considered haram to Iran under Islamic law. Or at least they were when the Ayatollah was alive, but guess what we did on the first day of the war? Anyway, I'm rambling about the war again, and I promise this is not an Iran-only video, but every time our administration opens its mouth about something in the region, it's usually bullshit. Like now, they're changing the name from Operation Epstein's Fury to Operation Sledgehammer if the war kicks off again. Which it basically already has, but we're trying to be coy about it because the optics look bad if we start firing missiles again without proper provocation. As much as America isn't really buying the nuke narrative or the narrative that we've already won. As many times as Trump may say it, if we have already won and they're totally decimated and it'll be 20 years before they can rebuild anything, then why are we anticipating the war flaring up again? Maybe because CIA reports just told us that Iran still retains 90% of its missile capabilities. Sounds like they're not so decimated and defeated after all, huh? But back to things that will actually affect our silly little goy lives. I may be exaggerating or overthinking, or probably both, but I genuinely don't see life in the US or the world remaining consistent within the year. Southeast Asia is probably going to be looking at mass famine coming around the corner. They're hurting the most from the fuel, fertilizer, and seed shortages, with almost no way to recoup. Europe is being sustained by Turkey supplementing the fuel they were getting in the Middle East, but Turkey is also beginning to mobilize. And if Turkey decides to turn the tap off, Europe is fucked. More so than they already are, considering the constant invasions of Browns. Speaking of, a relevant case from 2023 in the UK has recently gone viral for all the UK reasons you can think of. Hoy, you got a license for that knife? Oh, you're a Sikh. By all means, stab whoever you want, sorry. That's basically what happened to Henry Nowak, 18 years old by the way, rest in peace. He was stabbed on his way home after going out with some friends. Ran into the Sikh named Vikram Digwa. Something then happened that only Nowak and Digwa know, and it ended with Nowak being stabbed by Digwa's kirpan multiple times. A kirpan, or a shastar, is a Sikh ceremonial dagger. Now you're probably thinking, well, knives are banned in the UK, so obviously Digwa was arrested. That's where you're wrong, bucko, because Sikhs get religious exemptions and can open carry their ceremonial blades unchecked. The average UK citizen needs a license for safety scissors, but a random third world import can carry a blade because a religion says so. Diving further into this, when we explore why the Sikhs carry these daggers, things start to become a little more retarded. The Sikhs' faith, since about the 80s, has been one primarily centered around violence, as many Sikh leaders were banished from their respective territory in India for their involvement in major terrorist attacks during the Khalistan uprising, with a lot of the leadership settling down in the Western world like Canada and the UK. Back to the dagger. One of the articles of the Sikh faith is that they must always carry this dagger on them, with the intended purpose of this dagger is a weapon. A lot of times they try and sugarcoat it and say it's for self-defense purposes or whatever, but it's for defense of their religion. And defense of religion to them is more of an offense than a defense. It's not meant for ceremonial cake cutting or some other bullshit. It's explicitly used to be a weapon in the name of the Sikh faith. They have this concept called Dharam Yudh, which translates to war for righteousness. Quite literally, their version of jihad. It's why India has such a problem with terrorism in Punjabi territory. Sikhs use the concept to justify acts of terrorism in the name of the Khalistan independence movement. So the UK allowing this religious exemption is basically saying they have free reign to carry large blades in the name of their holy war against those who they perceive to stand against them. The fact that the UK administration tried to keep this entire situation on the down low and managed to for almost 3 years should say enough. They know this looks bad in every aspect of what happened, because it is. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. Why should UK citizens live under the strictest laws that prohibit self-defense in every aspect? Meanwhile, their invaders are given free reign to don weapons in the name of religion. To add further insult to fatal stab wound, police showed up after this entire thing happened and arrested Henry, the victim. They handcuffed him as he was bleeding out because Digwa accused him of a heckin' racism. Henry then basically drowned in his own blood as he was stabbed in the lung, among other places. Let me repeat this. They arrested the guy who got stabbed because the stabber accused him of racism. Not to mention the stabber had the victim's phone in his pocket. Every time I think the UK can't be any more cucked, shit like this happens. But it's not like we're any better here in America. Look at fucking Seattle, I think it was, where a dude got stabbed by a crazy homeless guy who cops know to, quote, normally just punch people, but apparently decided to stab this one white guy. And the jury found him not guilty because according to the crazy stabby guy, the white man called him the N-word after he stabbed him. Fucking clown world we live in. Speaking of black people stabbing white people, we have a few high-profile cases coming up very soon. First, DeCarlos Brown, Irina Zarutska's killer, has been deemed incompetent to stand trial. There are further competency trials coming, but from what it seems, they are trying to get it so he is released into psychiatric care, which is beyond fucking bullshit in my opinion. If you're too incompetent to stand trial for plain as day caught in 4K murder, like, being incompetent shouldn't be a way out of punishment. It should be a case closed point. Your punishment is the gallows or the firing squad. End of discussion. Too crazy to live amongst civilized society sounds like too crazy to be allowed to live. Following Brown's trial, we also have the case of the stabbing of Austin Metcalf, also taking place soon. His killer, Carmelo Anthony, has shifted to a self-defense aspect in the trial. That's definitely a bold strategy, so we'll see how that works out for them. What I'm getting at is we're looking at possible building blocks for isolated civil unrest events coming up, as things usually tend to ramp up once we hit the summer months. And with racial tensions on the higher side of things lately, it's a good idea to just keep these sort of cultural events in your mind. When combined with the ever-rising prices, gas shortages, food shortages, ongoing war with Iran, which will flare up again soon, by the way, I'm calling it now, we are living in very tumultuous times. Our society is collapsing. The US dollar is being stretched thinner and thinner every day. The veil over our fragile economy is being lifted. Violent crime in the US is accelerating rapidly with too many acts of violence / possible domestic terrorism to keep track of. Mass shooting here, political assassination attempt there, arson attack over there, a fucking VBIT attack in Washington, at a gym of all places. And on top of that, we now have the hentai virus becoming a thing, because that's exactly what we need. A new pandemic to scare the goy into submission, except this time it's not just a cold, it could kind of possibly actually kill you. Like, I'm not a religious person. Quite the opposite, I'm an atheist, but holy fuck, are we looking at the building blocks of Revelation? We have war, the red horse, famine, the black horse, the pale horse of death who uses plague. So all we're missing is the white horse. Who's that going to be? Beats me, but my point is things are getting very interesting. All I wanted was to buy a house, and instead we have the building blocks for what seems like it could be the end of the world. Speaking of the end of the world, there's been a lot of fires lately. All at oil refineries, stretching the already fucked oil economy even more. Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Oaxaca, Mexico, Canada, Australia, Russia, Ukraine, UAE, like what the fuck's going on? Yes, some are due to ongoing conflict, but there's still a little too many to be just a mere coincidence. And before you ask, yes, most, if not all, have been touched in some way by JP Morgan and BlackRock. Not to mention that on top of everyone losing refineries left and right, this means that existing refineries must operate harder, pushing the red line to try and keep up with existing demand. Even countries who can't export their oil due to the strait being closed, like the UAE, have to keep pumping oil, but they just have to store it because you can't stop pumping. The pipes will get fucked up and the entire operation will go belly up. So even though they haven't exported a drop since the war started, they have to run their pumps anyway and just kind of hold the oil there. You know what that is? It's a fucking target. If I were at war with someone in such a manner, I'd sure as fuck strike their oil reserve. This is all part of why you're seeing gas prices go up, by the way. Sure, they look a little okay now. That's solely because they just passed a temporary relief on state tax for gas prices, along with a national tax or a federal tax relief on those gas prices coming soon as well. However, this is simply a band-aid fix, and it's not going to last forever. Everything is going to go up. Everything that involves gas is going to go up, which is basically everything. Everything that needs to get shipped uses gas, so everything's going to go up. You want a loaf of bread? $20. Pay for it or get fucked, because it's not like our government gives a single shit of the struggle you're going through. They're coming right out and even saying it. Just listen to Trump's dumbass. $200 a barrel is acceptable price, he says. You know what that would do to us? You're looking at $7 to $11 a gallon on the lower end. And that's just on the economic side of things, not even considering the actual physical aspect of everything regarding availability. There will be massive changes to everything before we get close to $200 a barrel. What happens then? What happens when the corporations lose money on gas that fuels their vehicles? When diesel is too scarce to fill vehicles up daily? I used to do armored car shit for a job. Those bitches take a lot of diesel to run. Say one truck, depending on the city it operates in, has to fill up once every other day, maybe 3 times a week. Say diesel right now is at $5.66 national average. Let's bump that up and say it gets to $7 or $8 a gallon. An armored bank truck, an F650, has about a 38-gallon tank. Let's say they're at about a quarter before filling up, so that puts them at 8 gallons, meaning he has to add 30 gallons. So we'll say twice a week to be generous. That's $480-ish a week. 4 weeks in a month, that's $1,920 a month for one truck. Multiply that by a moderate-sized fleet, maybe 10 trucks. That's almost $20,000 a month in diesel for one branch. Is that sustainable to them? What happens when bank trucks stop running? ATMs don't get filled, stores don't get cash, banks don't get cash, and the money stops flowing, furthering the collapse of the economy. And that's just the armored truck industry. What about the truck drivers? What about construction sites, cargo vessels? Everyone will be affected. We will all be heavily impoverished. What happens when people cannot afford to go to work, when it costs more in gas for them to go to work than they make in the day at work? And always remember, the government does not care. Your finances and well-being are the last things on their mind. They will say it, and they will double down on it.
American financial situation, I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all. That's the only thing.
But the fact is that the U.S. economy is fundamentally sound, and that if it were to be extended, it wouldn't really disrupt the U.S. economy very much at all. It would hurt consumers, and we'd have to think about, if that continued, what we would have to do about that. But that's like really the last of our concerns right now, because we're very confident that this thing is going ahead of schedule.
I say this in almost every video, but we are in what's going to be a very important turning point in our timeline. We are living through an era that will be looked back on in the future and scrutinized as the beginning of the end or the great turning point of society, and it's up to us to figure out which one it'll be. Or maybe a new virus will take us all out and there will be no future. Who knows? As a lot of things with this whole hentai virus are lining up a little too well. Life is stranger than fiction, but holy shit, it's difficult not to schizo out on this one. So, aside from how rare the specific strain of the virus is, it's also the only strain that could be transferred from person to person. Furthermore, the ship that is basically ground zero for all this is some small rich person-only cruise that hits South America, the zones where the Andes variant of the virus exists, and then to Antarctica. Now, the interesting thing here is how PR was handled after things started getting out. I'm sure we've all seen the footage of that one fake crying homo, so I won't play that here, but my first thought was, how the fuck did he afford this shit? Turns out he's some small-time influencer who was basically given the whole cruise for free. So of course he's going to start acting like the mouthpiece for everyone on board who are probably technologically inadept boomers. But it gets a little more interesting here. His sister works for Haggerty Consulting in the fields of global health and disaster recovery. Now, like I said, coincidences and all, but I mean, shit's just a little too convenient, don't you think? Speaking of interesting coincidences, looking at the appendix of cumulative analysis of post-authorization adverse event, an FDA PDF report prepared by Pfizer about the investigation into adverse events regarding the COVID-19 vaccine, the hantavirus is shown here in the document, listed as possible adverse events. Could be nothing, could be something, but who knows? It took about a year from the first ground zero COVID reports in China before we felt the full lockdown effects here in America. So we still have some time before the hentai virus takes over everyone's life. Unfortunately, I have already fallen victim to this virus, courtesy of nhentai.net and her many pop-ups and ads. Speaking of China, we have a few little tidbits from our friendly world economic competitors. First and foremost, I searched for Chinese spy arrested in Google to look for the article I was trying to find about the one California mayor who was arrested, thinking, of course, it'll be the most recent one. But apparently no, there was another one just even sooner than that one. Headline: the Chinese spy Liu Jianwang was found guilty of running secret police stations in New York City. Now, I've heard of these secret Chinese police stations in New York for quite some time. I believe I've first heard of them a couple years ago. It seems they're still investigating them years later. It's really nothing new. I just thought it was kind of funny. Now, shifting over to the story I was actually looking for. In California, the mayor of Arcadia has been federally charged with acting as an illegal agent of China. She's facing up to 10 years in prison, which, I mean, didn't the crime of espionage used to carry a much harsher punishment? I understand she's a 58-year-old woman or whatever, but I mean, crime is crime. Espionage is literally like an act of war. But China spies in America are a dime a dozen. I mean, they're a meme at SHOT Show. Everyone knows that. And now with Trump and China negotiating oil deals, why? China is not as affected by this closure of the strait as everyone else is. They just passed 30 ships the other day with Iran's permission. What reason do they have to buy our oil? And we're going to let them bring all of these ships right up to our ports, right off of our coasts? The president's administration doesn't even trust them enough to bring the gifts given to them by the Chinese administration onto Air Force One. Yet, we can have all these ships just pulled right up to our infrastructure. And not to mention 500,000 of their students straight into our schools. We've been nothing but a thorn at the side of China for decades. And we're opening the door and asking them to fuck us right up. At least under Biden, they had to infill through the border and remain somewhat incognito. But Trump's just opening the doors wide and letting them in. They probably already have an extensive, intricate network already laid out here domestically. What reason does China have to keep us around? They want Taiwan. They want parts of Africa. They want alliances with Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, and Russia. And who is the world superpower standing in the way? Who is the world superpower that's pretty much hated by every country at the moment? Who is on the edge of collapse and in a prime state of being crippled financially, socially, culturally, with civil tensions higher than ever? The good old US of A. Fuck, I mean, even Israel is looking at detaching from US aid and moving to suck China dry. The world is at an extremely volatile and pivotal point in our world history, and we may be past the point of no return. Those in charge are leading us further and further into this dark timeline. We are at the point where we must start game planning and making decisions specifically for self-preservation. You are responsible for your own safety and your own survival. Things are going to change and change drastically and quickly, and it's up to you to prepare and protect yourself, your family, and those you care about. Ape together strong, as they say. Because your country is no longer yours. It has sold out your land, your people, your dreams. There's a certain sentiment in the right-wing YouTuber space about how you'd be a fucked up person for waiting for the big collapse or a civil war or a foreign invasion. But let's be fucking real. Change does not come without sacrifice. And I'm not calling for mass killings or whatever, but we are past the point of change coming with only the stroke of a pen. We are at the point of the sword, and violence is almost imminent now. It's the plain truth whether we want to accept it or not. There is no point in history where the type of change that is necessary for us to succeed as a country came peacefully. Everyone says, don't black pill, don't take that black pill, which yeah, I get it. Your own mentality is more than half the battle. If you black pill and give up and say, oh, what's the point? You might as well give up. Well, you're fucked. There's no hope for you. But black pilling in the aspect of, hey, things are fucked up and they're not getting better, and they're not going to get better until some really fucked up shit happens, but I have to make sure me and mine are gonna survive. I think that's a bit different. It's not entirely a black pill, but it's not entirely white pilling either. It's not gray pilling because, unfortunately, that was taken by some writer named Venkatesh Rao. I had to look it up and make sure gray pilling was a term. I was going to try and pass it off as my own thing. Well, apparently it's already taken, and his version isn't what I'm trying to explain, so fuck it, I have no pills to give. Either way, enjoy yourself while you can, but prepare for shit to get real bad real soon. Thanks for watching, and hopefully next time I'll have a less negative black pills. I don't know. It'll be more entertaining and less depresso espresso or something. Here's a video of sad Trump to cheer you up.
How are your talks, sir?
It's great.
Did you talk about Taiwan,
Great
Mr.
place.
President?
Incredible. China's beautiful.
特朗普总统说谈得很好。
He lasted 1.5 days in China. They're tired of his shit too. Follow me on X at yokayuki_en to watch me shit talk politicians. See you next time.